Welcome to Domain 4, Security Operations. This is the biggest domain on the Security Plus exam, 28% of your test, and it is also the part of the job where most of us actually live. We are going to spend a lot of time here, and we are going to start with the foundation. Objective 4.1, Applying Security Techniques to Computing Resources. Picture this. A Fortune 500 retailer rebuilds a payment server from the ground up. New hardware, hardened operating system, latest patches, endpoint agent installed, firewall rules tight. The team takes a screenshot of the CIS Benchmark scorecard and pins it to the wall. 98% compliant. 8 months later, that same server is the entry point for a ransomware crew. The forensic report finds the cause in 3 minutes. Somebody had enabled SMBV1 for a legacy printer. 1 toggle, 1 drift, 8 months. The server was hardened on day 1. Nobody checked it on day 100. Hardening is not a project. Hardening is a habit. That is the entire lesson of 4.1, and the rest of this video is going to give you the vocabulary the exam wants you to use. Start with the secure baseline. A baseline is the minimum security configuration every system has to meet before it goes into production and has to keep meeting throughout its life. 3 phases. Establish. Write the standard. Reference CIS. Benchmarks or DISA STIGs. Do not invent your own from scratch. The smartest people in the industry already wrote these and they did it for free. Deploy. Push the baseline to every system. Imaging, gold images, configuration management with Ansible or Chef or Puppet. A gold image is just a pre-hardened operating system template you clone from when you build a new machine. It is not magic. It is laziness, in the good way. Write it once, deploy it forever. Maintain, and this is the phase that gets skipped every single time. You verify the system has not drifted. Configuration drift is when the running config slowly walks away from the standard, usually because somebody made a one-off change at 3 a.m. during an outage and forgot to back it out. Tools that catch drift: SCAP, CIS-CAT, SIEM correlation rules, automated compliance scans on a schedule. The exam loves the word baseline, and it especially loves the phrase configuration drift. If a question describes a system that was once compliant and now is not, that word is what they want. Now, hardening targets. The exam will hand you a scenario and ask which technique fits which target. Let me walk through them and let me rank them by how often hardening actually breaks in the real world, from most broken to least broken. Number 1, by a country mile, mobile devices. People drop them, lose them, take them home, sync personal email to them, and connect them to the same Wi-Fi as the family smart fridge. Hardening for mobile means full disk encryption. Non-negotiable, the device gets stolen, the data does not leak. A strong PIN or biometric. Remote wipe through MDM, which is the only reliable answer to the lost device scenario. Disable unused services. Bluetooth, NFC, hotspot when you are not using them. App allow listing. Only approved apps. Screen lock timeout, failed login wipe. Usually after 10 attempts, the device wipes itself, and patches that actually get applied. If you have ever owned an on-call rotation for an executive who refuses to update their phone, you know exactly what I mean. The exam answer to lost or stolen mobile is always remote wipe, then encryption. Number 2, workstations. Remove software you do not need, because every package is a attack surface. Every package is a future CVE. Disable autorun and autoplay on removable media. That one is from the configure era and it still applies. Host-based firewall on, antivirus or EDR running. Group policy on Windows for screen lock, USB restriction, software restriction. MFA for login, and this one matters. Daily users do not run as local admin, they run as standard users. The number of malware infections that die instantly because the executing user did not have rights to install a service is staggering. Make standard users the default. If a developer needs admin for a specific tool, give them a separate elevated account they only use for that. Number 3, switches. Disable unused ports. Every dark port is a free network jack for whoever walks in with a laptop and a hoodie. Port security to limit MAC addresses. Per port, usually 1 or 2, so somebody cannot just plug in their own switch. VLAN segmentation. Break the broadcast domain by function. Disable CDP and LLDP on external facing ports. Those protocols broadcast your topology to anyone listening, which is the kind of free reconnaissance an attacker dreams about. BPDU guard on access ports to protect spanning tree from a malicious switch announcing itself as the new root bridge. And 802.1x for port-based network access control if your environment can support it. 802.1x authenticates the device before it gets a working port, the cleanest answer to the rogue laptop in the conference room problem. Number 4. Routers. Change the default credentials immediately. This is not optional. The default credentials are in the manual, which is on the vendor's public website. Disable the HTTP management interface and TELNET. TELNET sends your password in plain text. This is 1995 technology, and it has no business in a modern network. Use SSH. Apply ACLs to lock down the management plane. Only admins from specific subnets can reach the router's management interface. Enable logging and forward to SIEM. Update firmware regularly, because router firmware vulnerabilities are some of the nastiest things in the CVE catalog, and the patch cadence on consumer-grade routers is dismal. Number 5. Cloud infrastructure. This is the one that bites the most teams new to cloud. IAM with least privilege. No wildcard star permissions in production, ever. MFA on every cloud account, especially root. Encryption at rest and in transit. S3 encryption, KMS keys for the encryption keys themselves. Security groups and network ACLs to limit traffic. Security groups are stateful. Network ACLs are stateless. The exam will quiz you on the difference. CloudTrail or the equivalent audit log on every API call. Because if you do not log it, it did not happen as far as the investigator is concerned. And CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management, to detect misconfigurations before an attacker does. The single most common cloud breach in the news, year after year, is still a public S3 bucket. CSPM catches that the moment somebody flips it. Number 6. Servers. Disable unused roles and features. Remove unused ports and services. Dedicated service accounts with minimal privileges. One account per service, do not share. NTP sync. And I cannot stress this enough. If your timestamps are off, your forensics are useless. You correlate across machines by clock, and a clock that is 2 minutes off makes every alert in your SIEM look out of order. Apply patches to the OS, the middleware, and the application. 3 layers, 3 different patch cycles. And file integrity monitoring on the system files that should never change. FIM alerts you the second somebody drops a web shell into the document root, or modifies the host's file, or replaces a system binary. Number 7. ICS and SCADA, Industrial Control Systems. Different rules entirely. Patching is hard because uptime constraints mean you cannot reboot a turbine on a Tuesday. Air gap when possible. Physically separate the operational technology network from corporate and the internet. If you cannot air gap, use strict firewall rules and a DMZ between corporate and OT. Allow listing. Only known good executables run. Deny everything else. Compensating controls when patching is not feasible. That is your fancy way of saying we cannot patch, so we are going to surround it with extra monitoring and extra segmentation. Monitor for ICS specific protocols. Modbus, DNP3. And if you ever read about the Purdue model on the exam, that is the hierarchical segmentation of operational technology and information technology networks. Level 0 through 5, with level 0 being the physical process and level 5 being the corporate network. The Purdue model is the answer when the question asks how to architect OT segmentation. Number 8, embedded systems and IoT. Smart cameras, smart thermostats, smart whatever. The honest truth about most IoT devices is they cannot really be hardened. The firmware is locked, the credentials are hard-coded, the vendor will not patch. So the primary control is network segmentation. Put them on their own VLAN and use network-level controls because device-level controls do not exist. Default credentials get changed if possible. Unused services off. Firmware updates where the vendor supports them. The exam answer for IoT is almost always network segmentation, because the alternative is trusting an off-brand vendor with your network, and that does not end well. That is hardening targets. Now wireless. 4 standards, 3 of them are wrong answers on the exam. WEP. Broken, never use. Exists in the question only to be the incorrect choice. WPA with TKIP, deprecated, also wrong. WPA2 with CCMP and AES, current minimum standard. WPA3 with GCMP 256 and SAE, preferred. Two acronyms the exam will hammer. CCMP stands for Counter Mode with Cipher Block Chaining Message Authentication Code Protocol, uses AES, lives in WPA2. Just remember CCMP and AES go together, and TKIP is the deprecated one. SAE, Simultaneous Authentication of Equals, replaces the pre-shared key handshake in WPA3 and is the reason WPA3 is resistant to offline dictionary attacks. If a question shows WPA3, the answer involves SAE, not PSK. WPA3 Enterprise uses 192-bit minimum security with GCMP 256 and HMACS HA384. An open Wi-Fi under WPA3 uses OWE, Opportunistic Wireless Encryption, which encrypts your traffic even when there is no password. That is new, that is good, and it shows up on the exam. Mobile Solutions. MDM is Mobile Device Management. Push policies, push apps, wipe lost devices. MAM is Mobile Application Management. Manage just the apps, not the device. The right tool when the device is personally owned. UEM is Unified Endpoint Management. Manages every endpoint type from one console, mobile, laptop, desktop, tablet, all in one. Remote wipe, geofencing to restrict features by location, containerization to separate corporate and personal data on the same device. Then 4 deployment models you must memorize cold. BYOD, bring your own device, most flexible, least control, employee owns the hardware, biggest privacy headache. COPE, corporate owned, personally enabled, employer owns it, but you can use it personally. CYOD, choose your own device. Pick from an approved list, the company owns it. COBO, corporate owned, business only, maximum control, no personal use. This is the model for high security roles. The exam will ask which gives the most control. COBO, which gives the least. BYOD, which is the sweet spot of control plus employee happiness. COPE, connection methods on mobile, cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, NFC, USB, and VPN. Each one is a turn-on, turn-off question. Cellular is the native carrier connection, less dependent on corporate network. Wi-Fi requires a VPN on untrusted networks. Bluetooth has bluejacking and bluesnarfing risk. Disable when not in use. NFC is short range, used for payments and tap to pair. Disable when not needed. USB can be tethering, charging, or data transfer, and MDM can lock it down. Always on VPN tunnels corporate traffic regardless of network. This is the answer when the question describes a remote worker on a coffee shop hotspot. Application security, 6 concepts, each a likely exam question. Input validation, must happen server-side because client-side validation is bypassed in 5 seconds with a browser dev tool. Server-side input validation prevents SQLI, XSS, and buffer overflow. Secure cookies, HTTP only, so JavaScript cannot read them. Secure so they only travel over HTTPS. Same site to break cross-site request forgery. SAST, Static Application Security Testing, analyzes source code without running it. White box, used during development. This is the shift left tool. DAST, Dynamic Application Security Testing, tests the running app from the outside like an attacker. Black box, finds runtime and config, and integration bugs that SAST cannot see. IAST is the hybrid, instruments the app from inside, while DAST probes from outside. Code signing, developer signs the code with their private key. The operating system verifies the signature before executing, ensures integrity and authenticity, proves the software has not been tampered with. Obfuscation, make the code harder to reverse engineer, protects proprietary logic, slows down attacker reconnaissance. The 2 biggest exam traps in this section. Input validation must be server-side. and SAST equals source code, DAST equals running app. If you remember those two, you will get any application security question right. Sandboxing. Isolate code in a restricted environment so it cannot hurt the host. Used for malware analysis, untrusted software testing, browser tab isolation, and email attachment scanning. Examples: Windows Sandbox, Cuckoo Sandbox, browser isolation containers. Antivirus and EDR use sandboxing to detonate suspicious files safely. They actually run the file inside the sandbox to see what it does, and if it tries to encrypt files or call out to a known bad IP, it gets flagged. The keyword the exam uses is contain. Sandboxing contains the blast radius. If the malicious code runs, the damage cannot escape to the host. Quick recap in the form of a hardening checklist you can run today. 1. Write a baseline, CIS Benchmark or STIG. As your reference, no inventing. 2. Apply it through configuration management, not by hand. 3. Schedule drift detection, weekly at minimum. 4. Match the hardening technique to the target. Mobile gets MDM and full disk encryption. Workstations get standard users and host firewall. Switches get port security and disabled ports. Routers get SSH and ACLs. Cloud gets IAM, MFA, and CSPM. Servers get FIM and NTP. ICS gets air gap or DMZ. IoT gets a VLAN. 5. Wireless is WPA3 with SAE if you can, WPA2 with CCMP AES if you cannot. 6. Application security has server-side input validation and the right testing tool for the right phase. 7. Sandboxing is the safety net for everything you do not trust. One more thing before we close. The exam loves scenarios where the question describes a misconfigured baseline that drifted, a server with default credentials, an IoT device on the corporate VLAN, or a kiosk running as local admin. These are not trick questions. They are checking that you can name the technique that fixes the problem. Drift gets caught by SCAP or CIS-CAT. Defaults get changed at deployment. IoT gets a segmented VLAN. Kiosks run as standard users with screen lock and a hardened browser profile. Read the scenario, find the system type, apply the technique. That is the entire pattern. That is Objective 4.1. The baseline is the foundation, hardening is the daily work, and the worst breaches in the news started on systems that were once secure and stopped being checked. Hardening reduces attack surface. Every disabled service, every removed package, every changed default is one less thing for an attacker to use. Next up, Objective 4.2, Asset Management. We are going to talk about the orphan asset that nobody owns and how it becomes the entry point. See you there.